Hey, what's up, guys? This is Elliot tuning in again from the Dad and the Bachelor podcast. I wanted to make a video for you guys, just a follow up one. I just made one on opening up conversations with yourself about agreements you've made with people you've loved, family members, ex girlfriends, ex boyfriends, um, close friends you've known for a long time. Opening up the areas of trauma that you've experienced and revisiting within yourself through reflection what areas are serving you and what areas are no longer serving you. But I wanted to make a follow-up video about boundaries because I think that that's, you can't really have one without the other, right? And I think that it's important that, okay, one thing that I'm aware of now is that I'm not a licensed mental health professional. So I'm speaking about this from training in Buddhism. Buddhism does work with mind. That's the central aspect of Buddhism, mind or consciousness. That's what it works with. But I'm not a trained psychotherapist or psychologist, so I want to make that known. I do have training as a Buddhist within my clergy. In any case, boundaries. So I talked about like revisiting a legal agreement is one way you could think of looking at these things that you've put in place between you and loved ones based on trauma that you've experienced together or either yourself around being around them. Even be someone you've been bullied by at school back in the day. So what's the importance of those contracts? What's the importance of having boundaries? Well, this is oh man, this subject hits home for me, like in my guts, and it's because of, I don't want to get too much into the details, but one person in particular that I really, really, really loved in my life really had issues with boundaries, and that person who had a lot of issues with boundaries in her life, it was like her superpower that she didn't have strong boundaries and she could, it gave her a certain courageousness, but then it also hindered her in that she didn't see that boundaries would skillfully allow her to feel comfortable and less freaked out by situations. It's almost like if we don't have boundaries, then it's hard to know what is a threat and what is not a threat. If we don't correctly know what it is that can cause a threat and what can't cause a threat, then we don't, it's hard to, if we don't have any boundaries, we might mistake something that's threatening for something that's not threatening, and we might think something that's not threatening actually is threatening. So I think that that's one of the things about boundaries is that they help us distinguish. They help us make accurate discernment. In Buddhism, they talk about one of the aspects of our mind, our enlightened consciousness, which we all possess, is discriminating wisdom, discriminating awareness. And part of that discriminating wisdom and awareness is knowing what things are going to help connect us. That's even a bit of a clunky way of saying it. It's a natural function of the mind to know what's dangerous and what's not dangerous. But I think that that can get clouded over by this idea of like, oh, I have to be totally, especially if you're a so-called spiritual person, you'll be like, oh, I have to be totally non-judgmental. I have to totally just take whatever comes, and that's the wrong idea. I told this to this person who I love very much in my life who struggled this. I came up with the term, and maybe it's been around, the enlightened lobotomy. The idea that to become enlightened, you have to kind of have a lobotomy and not have any discriminating awareness is just not true. The part and parcel of the awakened mind is discriminating awareness. So how does this, play out? How does this work on a practical level? Well, on a practical level, we have all of these practical things we have to take care of in day-to-day life. And if we're not committing to the path of being a monk or a nun or a renunciate in life, in terms of life as a full-on experience that we embrace, and that's a spiritual path, whatever that means to you. If we aren't taking the path of monk and nun in regards to our life, we're going to need to make money. We're likely going to want to relate romantically in some level to the opposite sex, which means that we're potentially going to have kids, and we're going to potentially have a family, and we're potentially going to need to make more money, and we're potentially need to buy a house. We're going to potentially need to have modes of transportation such as cars and bicycles, and all of these responsibilities, and all of those responsibilities to take that on, as well as taking on the path of nun or a monk, all of it takes discriminating awareness. We need to know when, we need to be able to spot opportunities is one big thing. And spot opportunities to bring in resources that are going to benefit the people around us. So, for instance, we need to. So that ability is part and parcel of your mind. That's the biggest thing I want to impress upon you today, is that that's part and parcel of your mind, this ability to discriminating awareness. And you don't need law to tell you what to do and what not to do. You can observe through, and to some of you that may sound dangerous, but all law is consensus based on what shouldn't or shouldn't be done. But I believe, because it's my own experience, it's not even just a belief, but we know, especially within our bodies, how if we're attuned to our physical bodies, when we approach certain situations, when we approach a situation where someone dropped their wallet and we find it in a parking lot, we are going to, it's funny, okay, I actually found this ring in this parking lot, and just recently, and when I find it, there's instantly, like, there's this question, like, should I or should I not pick this up? Should I or should I not? Like, what's the skillful thing to do? And that is part and parcel of the nature of our mind, that discriminating awareness that is like reflexive. It's like, oh, what should I do here? What is the right mode? And then I think along with that, we get messages from our body about what is right and what is wrong given the circumstance. And also sometimes things are ambiguous. Sometimes it's not totally clear what's right or wrong given a circumstance because there is more ambiguity to it. But other times, for instance, kids about to run in the street. Boom, you're right there. You're not even gonna, like, it's literally that quick. You're not even going to think, really. There's going to be the quickest, like, seeing what's going on, and then you're going to act, right? And that's part and parcel of our awakened mind. That's something that, I think it's just such a big topic on so many levels, whether it's law or whether it's rehabilitation or whether it's understanding people can change, or whether it's trusting your instincts if you're ever in a life-threatening situation. To know that part and parcel of our mind is this intelligence that can make good, sound decisions based on our particular circumstance. Now, I'm not going to get into all the permutations and the kind of existential permutations of how that could happen. I've already given a couple, but I want to bring that in there to this conversation of opening up, the talk or teaching I was giving on Maciej Lobdrin, and approaching what you find repulsive, the 5 slogans of Maciej Lobdrin, which I just did in the last YouTube video. I wanted to say that for those of you that are worried about, there's a couple things. If you're worried about opening up trauma, you can always seek the guidance of a professional, licensed mental health professional to help you with that. 100%, highly recommend it. I've done it a little bit. I think it's a good thing to do. It's not always the right path for everybody. In fact, a lot of people, it might not be the right path. But if you want to do that route, I definitely recommend it. And again, I'm not a licensed mental health professional, but I do know from my training with Buddhism that we have this idea that even if you do encounter a place that scares you, or you do encounter old past trauma, that you have a mind, your nature of your mind is discriminating awareness, discriminating intelligence. So just remember that if you do decide to kind of venture into the haunted ground of your mind, that as simultaneously as that trauma is arising within you, especially within the body, in your guts, or wherever you're holding this. I've been having some stuff lately in my gut. There's simultaneously going to be this bright, almost like blissful intrinsic intelligence that's going to know how to manage with that material. And you have to, the thing about this approach is it's when we talk about the nature of the mind, your nature of your mind is always the nature of your mind. It's not changing. It's not like a state. It's not like something that's coming and going. So the thing about what I'm saying is your mind naturally has discriminating intelligence. Your mind is naturally wise. Is that it's that way all the time. And what Buddhist training is about, and the training that I received, is it goes up to the point of Dzogchen, and Dzogchen tells you that you are perfect and complete in and of yourself. You are a Buddha. So that means you have all the qualities of the Buddha, and that means that you have the ability to liberate suffering on the spot as it arises. So with that saying, we need to have that pointed out to us, and this may help you in that direction. It may help you to start to gain those moments of recognition where just hearing this information, even just conceptually, can help you move towards gaining that recognition. Now, I haven't been bestowed the formal capacity to give the pointing out instruction, which is where you devise a way to skillfully point out the nature of the mind to the student. But I can tell you the conceptual things that that could potentially help you get you there. And you never know how the nature of mind is going to be pointed out. There is a more formalized system in Tibetan Buddhism, which I became very aware of. They'll have you, have you received the pointing out instruction prior to, you have to have received it prior to receiving this other teaching. And the idea is that they don't want you to, it's almost like course content. Like if you haven't understood this concept, then if you move on to the next stage, it can be detrimental for your whole path. That's the idea. So there is a reason why it's been ritualized and formalized, but it's also true that you can recognize the nature of your mind in a spontaneous fashion, and it can be something outside of a formalized pointing out instruction where you can recognize your nature of your mind. So if that happens here, that's awesome. That's great. You can always, follow up with official, Tibetan or whatever nationality they are that has been officially given been given the stamp of approval to give the pointing out instruction. You can check to see if, you feel like you received something from any of these talks. I'm definitely trying to give it to you, but I don't know. I don't know the marks and signs. I'm not an official clergy member, so to speak. I don't think I am. Maybe my teacher will correct me one day. Maybe he'll say you are official clergy. Maybe he'll say you aren't, but I don't know. Anyways, I just wanted to say that what pointing out is getting to is this intrinsic intelligence of the mind, and that's something that all of you have. All beings have it, and there's all sorts of ways you can test that this is true. If someone's like, "Oh, that just sounds like mumbo jumbo," don't actually do this, but have you ever seen beings naturally go away from suffering and go towards happiness? And you can see this with everything from ants to all types of being, dogs. Like all of our motivations are to be in a state of happiness. And it's not to say that that always works for us, but it is our motivation. And that upwelling, that constant upwelling that's happening 24/7, 24/7, 365, is a sign of our enlightened nature. It's a sign of that intrinsic intelligence. And what the pointing out instruction does is help you recognize that in a very direct way, and then it allows you to recognize that throughout the day, many times, short times, so that eventually your experience of it is continuous. So I just wanted to give you guys that idea that there's a grade, like, just because you recognize the nature of your mind in one moment and you feel that release of that tension and pressure and psychological holding, and you have an experience, maybe like a meditation experience or a spiritual experience, or just even you could put it in more ordinary terms, a feeling of relaxation and of letting go and of melting, which is one of the great terms my teacher, Anam Tupten, would say, melting. Even though we've had experiences like this, it's important for us to not get experience and realization mixed up. Realization is a continual, unimpeding flow of experience, and experiences are something that come and go, right? And what the meaning of the pointing out instruction is to be eventually to be in an uninterrupted flow of never being apart from this open, spacious, loving intelligence that is the nature of your mind. So I hope this is helpful. I hope this was a helpful follow-up video. I just wanted to reinforce this idea that our mind has discriminating awareness, and part of that discriminating awareness is knowing when and when not to set up boundaries, and how those boundaries, see, that's the funny thing that we often don't associate, is how boundaries can lead to more openness, or boundaries can lead to more openness. Sometimes if we're kind of spiritual, we do this tricky thing where, we have to be open all the time in this kind of exaggerated way, and that's not really what's being got at here, okay? The nature of your mind has discriminating intelligence and wisdom and awareness and love. Part of that is love, unconditional love. And part of unconditional love is knowing how to skillfully act. It's not having lobotomy. It's not going offline and being totally spaced out or something like that. It's balance. All right, you guys, I hope that one was helpful. Wanted to leave you with that one as well. And again, all the best to your healing and releasing and skillful creativity during the time of COVID to bring about positive changes, not only for yourself and your family and everyone you're connected to, but this whole world and all the beings that you're connected to. I wish the best for you, sincerely from my heart, and I'll have all of you in my prayers and thoughts throughout the day. All right, I will leave it at that. I could keep talking, but I want to keep these clips in a good bite-sized chunk. All right, guys, feel free to leave your comments, like, subscribe. If you have any questions about the pointing out instruction, Dzogchen, that sort of thing, please leave them in the comments, and I'll try my best to answer them as, given the background I've told you that I have. So, take good care, be well, namaste.